live.
Yeah.
And it'll go like, there you go.
Wow. Good evening, everyone. I am Councillor Laura Binks, Mayor of the Shire of Strathbogie. I would like to welcome you all to this ordinary council meeting of the 20th of September 2022. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the places we live, work and play. We recognise and respect the enduring relationship they have with their lands and waters, and we pay respects to the elders past, present and future. Today we are meeting on the lands of the Tangarang people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, whose sovereignty here has never been ceded. I would like to again gladly welcome members of the public back into our gallery now that the winter response to the COVID-19 pandemic is behind us. We will continue to practice COVID-safe practices. However, it's great to be able to hold meetings in person once again. I'd also like to welcome all of you watching the live stream through our website. This meeting is being held in accordance with Strathbogie Shire's governance rules and guidelines around virtual meetings. Voting by councillors at tonight's meeting will be held by a show of hands. If a councillor has a conflict of interest in a matter, they will be asked to leave the meeting and no discussion on the matter will commence until we are sure they have done so. The person will then be contacted to rejoin the meeting after the matter has been considered and the vote concluded. Please note that councillors will have the ability to make a procedural motion to have a 10-minute restroom break should this meeting run over 2 hours, and should a break be required. Councillors will not, if they do require a break, they will not be able to use their mobile phones nor engage with members of the gallery. We will continue the live feed during any break. However, you may see a number of vacant chairs until the meeting resumes. CEO Salomon, are there any apologies for tonight's meeting?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, there are 2 apologies for this evening's meeting. We have Councillor Horrigan and Director Tingay are both apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Salomon. Councillors and officers, are there any disclosures of conflicts of interest to be made under Rule 94 of our Governance Rules and Division 2 of the Local Government Act 2020? Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have 9.2.1 Action Group funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. And I would like to declare a material conflict of interest in relation to item 9.2.6 as it relates to a request for funding for the Australian Institute of Company Directors course that I'm currently undertaking. Are there any further conflicts of interest? No? Okay, councillors, we need to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes from the ordinary council meeting held on the 16th of August 2022 require confirmation. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Rayburn?
I move the recommendation printed on page 1, I believe, to be recommended.
Thank you, Councillor.
Passes, Council.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hayes-Burke. Any councillor wish to speak to the motion? No. Can I have a show of hands, please, for the motion? And in favour, yes. Against? And I declare that motion carried. Thank you, councillors. CEO Salomon, do we have any petitions to be tabled at this evening?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, there are no petitions to be tabled for this evening's meeting.
Thank you, CEO Salomon. Councillors, I'm going to make my report first. It's brief this time, and then I'll invite you to make yours. So on behalf of the Strathbogie Shire Council, I offer our condolences to the royal family and to King Charles at the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Members of our community can leave messages of condolences for Her Majesty the Queen at the council offices in both Euroa and Gambi, and those condolences will then be sent to Buckingham Palace and archived. We are also hosting a free morning tea and screening of The Princess at the Euroa Community Cinema for this year's Victorian Seniors Festival. The The free screening and morning tea will be held on Wednesday, October the 5th from 10 a.m. The film uses archival footage showcasing the life and tragic death of Princess Diana. And I also wanted to quickly touch on our school holiday activities for the region's youth. So the Here and Now school holiday program features an array of activities including film, cooking and skateboarding workshops, a free movie and a huge music and arts festival. For the younger kids, there's $5 movies at the Erosion Community Cinema. And there's a whole lot more information which you could be able to find on our website, www.strathbogie.vic.gov.au. We also have some projects up on our engagement platform, which is www.share.strathbogie.vic.gov.au, and we invite our community and residents and ratepayers to provide feedback and advice. The ones we are currently seeking input on are our draft tree management plan, our EV charging station options for Gambi, the second draft of the Gambi streetscape plan, and as you can every month, vote on whichever you would like to be seen at the Erosion Community Cinema. And that's a really popular one, and I hope you put your votes in. So, councillors, would anyone like to make a report? Councillor Rayburn?
Thank you, Mayor. I went to the RCV, which is a Rural Council Victoria seminar over in Dalesford with the Mayor, and he was one of the conveners of an event there on the day, and also Councillor Murray. It was a great day, and I wholeheartedly recommend that all councillors go to these sorts of things to understand where other councillors are asking questions and what their interests are, but also to do a bit of networking and to find out not just what the rural councils are going through, because we're in a bit of a golden era here where other councils west of Ballarat and Bendigo are struggling really big time with housing and everything over there. So it's a real big issue over in the west side of Victoria. So it was very, very interesting to have a chat with councillors. Also, I went to the Violet Town Action Group AGM last Wednesday night, which actually elected 11 members on the committee, 4 new people. And also we had Barry Hobbs from the Bush Nursing Home come and speak. And it was interesting, their yearly budget is $12.3 million. And I made comment to the gallery and the members that our budget's $40 million. So, and that brings it into reality, how big that nursing home and how they're going. It is a big organisation. Also, I went to the local primary school's first concert in 4 years on the Thursday night, which was brilliant. The kids loved it. They just, COVID had shut them down for so much, and it was just lovely to see the kids up there really enjoying themselves and having a great time. And then last Friday, I went to the MAV State Conference to substitute for the Mayor, where we voted on the votes that each council have an equal number of votes, which is number 1, where usually the major councils like Bendigo, Ballarat and all the metros have 2 votes. So 57 councils voted for that motion and 13 against. So it's not bad out of 79 councils that 70 went to the MAV State Conference. So that's all I've got to mention.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Any other councillor like to? Councillor Dickinson?
Yes, thank you. Not necessarily in any order, but good news first. Congratulations to Gambi under-18s. They won the grand final on Saturday. That augurs pretty well for the future of the footy club with that young group of players. A reminder to all our residents that officers are now in attendance at the Regatta Centre 5 days a week. If you need to speak to one of the officers, make a phone call and get an appointment, and they'll be happy to help you out there. So it's good to see we have some representation. It's for a trial period of 6 months, so it's up to residents now to make use of it, just to see whether there is a need for an office over there. Both Dave Andrews, Councillor Dave Andrews and myself met with Gambi last week and discussed a number of items. They're a pretty go-ahead organisation and always got the community interests at heart. Also last week was the streetscape plan with planning officers in attendance. When I went in there seemed to be a fairly constant stream of residents calling in to speak about the plan, but I think overall it's had a pretty good reception. Little Athletics is starting very soon in Gambi, which is fantastic, and council very generously donated $5,000 there to get it up or help get it up and going. I also attended the AGM of the Recreation Reserve, and it was fairly evident there they struggle for committee members, and for such a large organisation with a large membership, it's pretty disappointing to see the lack of volunteers. The work is left to a few. It seems to be happening in a few organisations. So I can only urge the members of the footy club, netball clubs, petanque, cricket, junior sport, all those organisations are represented at the Rec Reserve. Well, might be time a few of you put your hands up and contributed. That's my little smack on the wrist. Councillors will be in attendance next Tuesday in Gambi. We're going for a bit of a wander around just to familiarise, not so much myself, but the other ward councillors familiarise themselves with what's been happening in Gambi. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any other councillor like to offer something? Thank you.
Get my microphone ready.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good. Thanks, Reg. Just adding to the school holiday set of initiatives, there's also an event for younger children at the Arboretum next Thursday, the 29th. It's a bush nature walk and some craft making as well. So I thought I'd add that to the school holiday program. And the show and shine is upon us as well, which will happen the last weekend, I think, the 2nd of October, which I know is a big economic driver and lots of residents and visitors attend that one. We had a Greening Euroa meeting in the middle of last month, and now GB Water's looking at actually sort of staging that project. So putting together potentially like a timeline where they could do like the first stage being a pipeline to Euroa High, and then maybe working on it from there. Yeah, but we're still hoping we will get the full amount of funding, but I think staging that project is a good backup plan because it is a big project. The community planting at the Rockies has all taken place and it looks fabulous down there. I did help with some of that and it was a really great way of getting different community groups together. There was Murrindindi and Benalla Shire also present and the Golden Broken CMA, and they actually used the Seven Creeks in Euroa as a real showcase to show how the community and council have worked together really well. And they were actually all quite envious of how beautiful the creek was looking and all the plantings along there. So that made me feel good. I attended the Tibuilt Community Festival as well, which was a great community event. And yeah, thanks to Tibuilt for putting that on. It was really fun and most of it was free. So I think the community really appreciated that. Also, with the Mayor and CEO and I think there might have been someone else from Council. Oh yeah, Molly, Environmental Officer, spoke on the community radio last month, which was, I thought, went really well. And it was a long time to fill an hour, but we did well. I didn't speak for too long, but they're going to be up as podcasts. So I encourage the community to look out for those and I'll be sharing those when I get a chance. That's all from me.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Did anyone else like to make a report? Yes, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to give a rundown of some of the events that I've attended since the last meeting. 23rd of August, a group of councillors went down to Avenel and spent the day down there looking around Avenel. So thanks to the councillors who attended that day. It was terrific, and I know that the Avenel community appreciated showing some of the councils around the town and some of the assets and some of the problems that exist down there. Also went with Sally with Councillor Hayesburg to the VCAL students, helped them sort of plant out at the Rockies, and I thank all the VCAL students who are involved with that and Uriah Secondary College who helped facilitate that happening. 2nd of September went with Councillor Rayburn and the Mayor to Dalesford, and really I thought that was a terrific day too, and as Councillor Rayburn has said, a lot was learnt out of that, and particularly some of the networking opportunities were terrific as well. 5th of September I attended the AGM and chaired that one of the Uriah Historical Society as they elected their new committee. I encouraged people to make use of that facility and to go and visit it. It's a terrific Shire facility down there run by volunteers who do a great job and spend a great deal of time and energy in maintaining that facility. Avenel Primary School, I went down there to their arts exhibition, which was held on the 9th of September. I thank the Principal, Ross Dean, for putting that on and for the invite. The kids were terrific. There were lots and lots of parents there, great pieces of art, a great choral singing group. And if anyone gets the chance to see any of the art down there or listen to the kids singing, it's terrific. 14th of September, there was an Arts and Tourism Committee which I attended. We got to hear about the new art box idea for the community, for the Shire, which I thought is great and something exciting for the community. And also we talked about the public art policy, which is open for people to have their input on at the moment. 12th of September, I attended a town hall meeting put on by Uriah Health. They are making a big push at the moment to try and get some funding for some more funding for the hospital so that they can take care of more of our public patients and facilitate that. And I urge the community to get behind some of those petitions and some of their actions that are happening there. I also attended the launch of their X-ray machine down there on that day, and alongside the CEO. We were both there, and it's a great service to the community and one which is welcome back in this community. I think that's a lot. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Andrews, would you like to tell us something?
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, a couple of big projects in the Gambi appear to be coming along nicely and progressing. The splash park there, they're confident everything will be underway and well in place for Christmas. And I see plenty of activity now on the foreshore regarding the boardwalk, foreshore walk. So they're accumulating all their infrastructure and so forth. So hopefully that'll we'll see some action there shortly. That'll be up in time. Also on the weekend, that was a bit lousy with the rain, and admittedly, but the cranksters, the hot rod people, came into town and were at the Regatta Centre showing off their various vehicles. So that was good to see them around town and create a bit of interest in the local people. So it's good to see those sorts of events coming back as we go. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Certainly.
I'd just like to welcome Tom back into the chamber.
Certainly.
Tom did have a serious issue back a couple of months ago at the level crossing, and good to see you back on your feet. I notice you're still limping, but that's good. You're going to give us cheek, and I notice we've got questions from you tonight, so life goes on. But welcome back.
Thanks a lot.
Yes, welcome back, Tom and Marie. Thank you very much for coming and joining us this evening. CEO Solomon, do we have questions from the public this evening?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, as Councillor Rayburn indicated, we have some questions for this evening meetings from, and the first two are from Tom Ma. And I'd also like to say welcome back, Tom. The first question from Tom is regarding the ARTC. And he asks, what's the position for the Anderson Street works up to date? And should the council consider option 3? So thank you for your question, Tom. As you appreciate, ARTC is driving this project and council is there to advocate on behalf of the community. We know that the future design of the Anderson Street Bridge, the Rural Railway Precinct and the movement of vehicles, both road and rail, has a significant impact on the Euroa Township's future. We have continued to advocate to the decision makers, that's ARTC and the Department of Transport, for them to implement the community's preferred design solution. Following the ARTC community survey seeking the Euroa community's view on an overpass or an underpass option, there was clear sentiment from the community for Euroa to be a united community visually, and for that a clear preference was for an underpass solution. We believe strongly the community's preference should be the solution implemented by the ARTC. We know that good design creates inspired and connected communities, and as such, we will continue to advocate for the best possible solution for our community. And the second question relates to roads, and the question is, why does council restrict the ratepayers' usage of roads in this Shire and who pays for it? We did ask Tom for some clarification on your question, and we understand that the correct question relates to the use of culverts, both box culverts and round culverts. So in response, Tom, council does not restrict ratepayers in the use of our roads unless they are designated dry road, where the road may be closed through winter or during inclement weather. In relation to the use of square culverts versus round culverts, both are interchangeable and depend on the terrain and the type of works required. Usually, the box culverts are used where a larger volume of water needs to pass under the road. So thank you for your questions, Tom. The next two questions are from Marie Ma of Belmatham, who asks two questions as well. Firstly, assets of this Shire. Why is there not a complete asset register for ratepayers to see? So thank you for your question, Marie, and also welcome back. A road register is available on the Shire's website and is in the process of being updated. We also have data on a mapping system that identifies councils' owned and managed assets. There is currently an audit and review of council-owned and managed buildings being undertaken that will update this information. Given the breadth and number of assets the council holds, a single register would be unwieldy. So we manage our assets and asset management in a more effective way. This is similar to other practices adopted by councils. Your second question is also on roads. Your question specifically, since the amalgamation of this Shire 27 years ago, why is this Shire not assessing all roads, bridges and assets and keeping them maintained as damages to vehicles and the property the Shire is liable for? In response, we do have a maintenance inspection schedule for our roads and bridges in accordance with the Road Management Act 2004 and outlined in the Council's Road Management Plan. Our asset plan, recently adopted by Council, also outlines our approach to asset maintenance, and our Road Management Plan and Asset Plan are both available on our website. Thank you to you both for the questions.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. We'll now move to the officers' report and page 1 of our agenda this evening, item 9.1.1, planning permit application number P2022-049, 3-lot subdivision and associated works, including construction of crossovers, vegetation removal under the erosion management overlay, Main Street, Strathbogie. Acting Director Aitken, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Planning permit application P2022-049 is for a 3-lot subdivision with associated works including the construction of 2 vehicle crossovers and vegetation removal in the erosion management overlay. The vegetation removal is minor, being some small saplings and potential branch pruning to provide safe ingress and egress to 2 existing crossover locations that need to be formally constructed. The location of the proposed vehicle crossovers will avoid the need to remove more substantial vegetation in the road reserve. The site is located within the township zone where this type of infill subdivision is supported. The proposal has gained the consent from all referral authorities. The application was advertised and 1 objection has been received. The grounds of objection relate to the location of future dwellings on the proposed allotments and the location of internal vehicle access ways. Officers believe that these concerns could be resolved by discussion between the applicant and the objector and are not a relevant assessment for the current application before us for subdivision. Additionally, Council has received notice from the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal, or VCAT, that the applicant has lodged an application with VCAT against the failure of the responsible authority to decide on the application within the prescribed statutory timeframe of 60 days. So even though we have a failure to determine an appeal that has been lodged at VCAT, and VCAT is now the decision maker, Council must still form a view on the merits of the application. This will assist the tribunal in making a determination on the matter. It's officers' recommendation that Council should form the position that it would have issued a notice of decision to issue a planning permit if it had the power to do so. The recommendation is on page 2 for Council's consideration.
Thank you, Acting Director Aitken. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer?
Thanks, Acting Director. I just want to check, so in order for the crossovers to be constructed, because they're in the erosion management overlay, they still need an additional planning permit. They can't just go and construct those. That's right, is it?
So they've applied for planning permit permission to construct the crossovers in the erosion management overlay. However, they will need additional approval through a road opening permit to construct those crossovers in accordance with the infrastructure design manual.
Thanks for that.
Are there any further questions or clarification? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as recommended beginning on page 2 of our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Haysberg, thank you. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly to say that I believe this is a good infill development in the township. I believe it has minimal impact on the environment there as we have heard from the acting director, and I believe if there are any concerns, they will be addressed in future planning applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to say that, we read the objectors' concerns. Well, I did, and they're very valid. However, I guess they'll relate to further construction on the site, which is what was alluded to by Councillor Murray and the Acting Director Atkins. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful, because a future permit or future construction on the site needs a planning permit due to it being in the erosion management overlay. And it was a bit for me to get my head around, but I just wanted to make that clear that this is just clearly for the subdivision of the site, rather than it doesn't apply to any construction.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Did any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Councillors, I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to page 12 of the agenda, item 9.1.2, planning permit applications referral to council policy for adoption. Acting Director Aiken, can we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Officers have a statutory obligation to decide on planning permit applications in a timely manner. The council plan goal is for 80% of applications to be decided on within the statutory timeframe. Both at the recent community satisfaction survey results and the Talk to a Planner days have seen the community express a desire for quicker decision making on planning permit applications. Currently, a planning permit application that receives one or more objection or that is recommended for refusal needs to be referred to council for a decision. This can increase overall approval times and lead to community frustration on decision-making timeframes. Often applications referred to council receive only a small number of objections and do not have any significant strategic implications or impact on the broader community. Reducing the number of applications being presented to council for determination, particularly those with a small number of objections, will speed up overall approval times and free up more time for officers to process other applications in a timely manner. Officers are recommending the adoption of a policy for the referral of planning permit applications to council in order to provide clarity for all involved in the decision-making process. The draft policy stipulates that a delegate must refer planning permit applications with the following triggers to a council meeting for a decision: an application with 5 or more objections, an application that is called in by a councillor, an application that raises an issue of significant public interest, concern or controversy, or is likely to do so, and an application where officers believe that the application or any issue arising in connection with it should be determined by council rather than by officers. The recommendation is on page 12 for council's consideration.
Thank you, Acting Director Aiken. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification to the officer? Councillor Murray.
Acting Director, I understand that that there will be reports made to councillors on the planning matters that you are considering on a regular basis, and therefore councillors will be aware of any issues that may arise in planning application. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor Murray. So in addition to the regular monthly reporting of applications received and determined, there'll be a weekly update provided to councillors of any applications that officers are proposing to decide on under delegation that are either recommended for refusal or have less than 5 objections. We'll also provide a link to the council website that shows any applications currently on public notice, so that'll give councillors an opportunity to have a review of those applications and see if there's anything in there that you know is of strategic nature and should be called in.
Thank you, Acting Director Aiken. Are there any further questions of the Director? Councillor Dickinson?
Just one. So where there are up to 5 objections, will you be notifying council that there are that number of objections?
Yes, thank you. So thanks, Councillor Dickinson. So anything with 5 or more objections will be required to be referred to council under the policy if adopted. For applications with less than 5 objections, we'll be notifying councillors, correct? All right.
Thank you, Acting Director Aiken. Councillors, if there's no further questions, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Yes, Councillor Dickinson.
Yes, I'd like to move the motion as recommended on page 12. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Rayburn, thank you. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, just briefly, I think it's a really good common sense approach to the planning applications, and it can only help speed up planning, which is pretty important. Yeah, well done.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Just out of our community satisfaction survey, 44% of our community said they were disappointed in our planning, but we've just had an auditor come through and do our planning review where we're actually doing 86% of our planning. So that's a perception that if you're not getting your say in your 30 days or 60 days, is another quite true on exactly how the planning operations work. So this is going to improve that. So we may end up around 95% if this is going to improve it so much. So that's unbelievable within a planning department. So our community should be very, very satisfied and hopeful that our planning department is doing a great job, and I think they are.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Murray?
Just to say that I think this is a great initiative. I think it not only, as Councillor Dickinson has said, does it speed up the process, but it also enables that rigour and that oversight to be maintained in the whole process. So I think it's a good balance between the two aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. If there is no more comments, councillors, I will put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour and against, and declare that carried? Thank you, councillors. We now move on to item 9.1.3, planning applications received and planning applications determined the 1st to the 31st of August 2022. Acting Director Aiken, can we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I refer you to page 18 of the agenda, where it's noted there were 23 new planning permit applications received and 27 planning permit applications decided upon during the reporting period being the 1st to the 31st of August 2022. The recommendation is on page 18 for Council's consideration.
Thank you, Acting Director Aiken. Councillors, are there any questions of the officer regarding this item? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Dickinson.
I'd like to move the motion as set out on page 18.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. And do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Hayes-Burke. Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dickinson.
Look, 23 applications received and 27 decided upon. That's a pretty good batting average. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak to the motion?
I just want to note on this report, there's a couple which have excessive amounts of native vegetation removal listed for them, but I think I'll know more information about those and they may even end up coming to council. So I'll just keep an eye on those.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Were there any other councillors who would like to speak to the motion? No. Councillors, I will put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to page 20, item 9.2.1. Community Action Group Funding 2022-23. Councillor Rayburn has declared a general conflict of interest as he is an employee of the Violet Town Action Group and he is now leaving the chamber. We will wait for Councillor Rayburn to leave the chamber. Thank you for your patience, gallery and online community. Okay, I can confirm that Councillor Rayburn has now left the council chamber. Acting Director Aitken, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Funding allocation for Strathbogie Shire Council's 8 community action groups opened on the 1st of July this year and closed on the 1st of August. The purpose of the community action group funding is to provide an opportunity for community action groups to undertake projects that deliver on the objectives outlined in their community plans, that encourage community participation and also align with the council's plan. The total budget allocation for the 22-23 group funding is $81,000. 4 of the 8 community action groups requested funding for a total of $38,550, supporting a total of 10 projects to be delivered through this allocation. Council officers are requesting that the funding program reopen on the 1st of October for the groups who did not apply for funding until the funds are exhausted, enabling council officers to work with the community action groups to identify and submit projects that meet the funding guidelines for consideration for council. Officers are also requesting a review of the community action grants and community action group funding guidelines to investigate the reason for the low uptake across both funding programs and the nature of projects that are being funded. In addition, council officers also recommend a review of the community action group model to enable a continuous improvement and best value for our community groups. The recommendation is on page 20 for council's consideration.
Thank you, Acting Director Aitken. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the officer regarding this item? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to support the recommendation that begins on page 20 of our agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Andrews. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. It would seem that there are some issues about our community grants to action groups or our grants to action groups and how the uptake of those. So there are some issues there that we need to grapple with, and I support the idea that we look at that model and look at how it's been applied and some of the guidelines that surround that in order to facilitate our communities getting access to a considerable amount of funds that are at the moment unallocated. There is more unallocated than there is allocated, and I think that's a shame. And I do support the idea of working with some of those action groups to try and facilitate their access to some of that funding and to try and focus their attention on some of the projects that I know can be done in each of our communities. So I recommend this recommendation to my fellow councillors for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Andrews, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dickinson?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, well done to those 4 action groups that have been successfully approved for their funds. There are still 3 communities there that didn't apply for funds because of the state of their own organisations, and I understand 2 of them are getting their act together, being Strathbogie and Rockies. Unfortunately, Gambi residents don't have their act together, and we need to, or the Gambi residents need to start asking some questions and putting something together and reforming their action group, because they're only missing out on funding by not being an organised action group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Haysberg, would you like to say something?
It sounds like there's some really great projects here, and council's, I think, really excited to be able to help fund these. It shows that we do have some really hardworking action groups in our Shire. And I just want to thank officers for continuing to make the funds available for those groups that haven't yet applied, because that's what we will be doing as part of this recommendation. It would be amazing to get to a point where these funding streams are oversubscribed, because there's money out there for great projects. So I concur that I think the review is definitely in need, and hopefully we get some great information about what the community is really looking for and how we can best help facilitate those projects. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I? Oh, yes, of course you can. Sorry, Councillor Murray.
So, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that there are many inhibitors to action groups getting access to the funding, and many inhibitors, I suppose, or barriers that some volunteers face in making these applications. So I know that it's not simply a matter of not getting your act together sometimes, but overcoming some of the barriers that volunteers face. So I think one of the good things about this motion is that it will attempt to address some of those barriers and perhaps assist in us overcoming those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray, and apologies for not giving you the right to reply. I didn't think it was necessary. Okay, so now I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. And Director Bray is bringing Councillor Rayburn back into the chamber to join us. Thank you for your patience waiting for Councillor Rayburn to rejoin us. We're now at page 27 of the agenda, item 9.2.2, the Public Art Policy for Adoption. Acting Director Aitken, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The Strathbogie Shire Council Arts and Culture Strategy and Action Plan highlights council and the community's commitment and desire for public art. In response to this, council officers drafted a public art policy. At the council meeting held on June 21 this year, council endorsed the release of a draft public art policy for community consultation. Consultation is now complete and an engagement plan detailing submissions is attached to this report. A total of 4 submissions were received and some minor amendments to the policy have been made as a result of the feedback received. The policy has been drafted to provide a clear and transparent process for assessing and making decisions about the design, placement and preservation of art in public spaces within the Shire. This report presents the draft public art policy for Council's consideration and adoption. The recommendation is on page 27 for Council's consideration.
Thank you, Acting Director Aitken. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the officer? Councillor Murray?
Could I have, Director, Acting Director, could you detail some of the engagement that went on and some of the results that we got from that engagement?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Murray. So it was quite extensive in terms of consultation. It was a combination of media releases, social media posts, website content and information in weekly newspapers explaining how the community could have their say. I think there was over 150 views and only 4 submissions. The submissions were quite minor. It was really about making sure that there was the availability of display of public art in public places, setting aside public spots for clear display.
Thank you, Acting Director Aitken. If there are no further questions, councillors, can I have a motion and can you state what your motion is, please? Councillor Haysberg?
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation on page 27.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Murray? Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Haysberg?
Thank you. Overall, the feedback that we had from the community was really positive, that this is definitely a step in the right direction. And I guess the community is now really looking forward to seeing some hopefully locally produced artwork in public spaces. And council did contribute, I think, $20,000 in the current budget towards a piece of public art. So now that we've hopefully get this policy approved tonight by council, we can look at acquiring a piece of art. And I think, I'm confident that this policy addresses design, maintenance and particularly safety issues, which are of key concern to the community and with all public infrastructure. So I just look forward to seeing some artwork now.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to say that I know that there are many individuals and other members in the community more broadly that are very interested in this space, this public art space. I know Longwood in particular has some plans for some public art which they would like to pursue, and I recommend this motion to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Okay. Councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. I now move to item 9.2.3 on page 33 of our agenda, Erosion Secondary College scholarship request for 2022, 2023 and 2024. Acting Director Aitken, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Council has received a request from Erosion Secondary School for funds to support a scholarship for 3 years, being 2022, 2023 and 2024, as you've just stated. The value of this request is for a commitment of $500 per year for those 3 years, totalling $1,500. From 2019 to 2021, Strathbogie Shire previously awarded a scholarship to 2 current Erosion Secondary College Year 7 students in the form of a $250 scholarship for each student. This scholarship was generally used to assist with the purchase of books and materials as those students moved into Year 8. Currently, Council has no approved funds to support this request in the 2022-2023 budget, and the request does not meet the eligibility criteria for Council's current sponsorship program. Given the above, this report recommends Council decline the request from Euroa Secondary School for the scholarship and notify the school in writing of this decision. Despite this recommendation, it's noted that Council does a lot of good work with Euroa Secondary College through the Council's Youth Development Officer, and Council intends to continue this program and continue to work with the youth within the schools to provide service provision for the benefit of the young people across the Strathbogie Shire. The recommendation is on page 33 for Council's consideration.
Thank you, Acting Director Aiken. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the officer? Councillor Andrews?
Thank you, Mayor. Just for my knowledge, it's the Erosion Secondary College is only high school per se in our Shire, is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Murray?
Can I ask a question about who we're actually sponsoring in this request? Are we sponsoring the secondary college, or are we sponsoring some students here in Year 8? Acting Director?
Yeah, so the sponsorship would be given to the school. However, it is awarded to individual students per year for each of the 3 years requested.
Are there any further questions, clarification? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Haysbrook?
Yeah, I'm happy to move the recommendation on page 33. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbrook. Councillor Rayburn is seconding. Would you like to speak to the
Yeah,
motion?
sure. I mean, this was a bit of a tricky one for me because obviously I'd like to see council support education initiatives, but sadly it doesn't fit within our current sponsorship guidelines. So we can't just go and sponsor things that don't fit in our policies. Or where do we start? Where does it stop? So yeah, sorry, Euroa Secondary College, but we do continue to support you in other ways, and do reach out if there is any other ways that fit in our guidelines that we can sponsor you.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbrook. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to? Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No.
I'd like to make a comment about this particular recommendation. I'm loath to support this recommendation. I think that it is the only secondary school in the Shire. There are a number of students who need our support in the Shire. We do a bit of work with students, I know, in various ways. It just seems to me that this is a shame that we can't find the $250 over those 3 years for those two scholarships that go to students, really. They're not really sponsorships for the school. They're really sponsorships for individual students there. So I do feel loath to vote in favour of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Andrews?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to speak against the motion. I think on the face of it, it appears a bit mean-spirited, and I know that's not the case, but I mean, we're giving thousands of dollars to grants, and there's plenty more to give out. There's Christmas decorations. We put a lot of money around the community, and this is $500 a year for 3 years for two students who excel in not only academically, but their extracurricular activities at the school, and they do put into the community. So I think something like that should be encouraged as a positive for the council to make these awards and support our youth who are striving in those areas. It's also, it's just, it would appear that I think there's something can be done to just ensure a little bit. It's only an inkling. And to sort of withdraw that as I say, appears to the community to be a little bit mean-spirited. So I would support the fact that we go against this recommendation on this account.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Murray, Councillor Murray, Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the motion, giving you reserved your right?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate this. I understand the two councillors' quandary on this, but it comes down to good governance and principles and policies. We haven't got a policy. We've got a policy. We don't support what is being recommended. If we go outside our policies, why do we have policies? And we have fundamental governance. We have fundamental operation as a council. We operate as a council. So if we're going to go against all these recommendations that we personally ourselves have put these policies into position and then go against them, why the hell are we sitting here trying to do governance of our Shire? So that's the reason why I go this way.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Haysberg, would you like to exercise your right of reply?
In principle, I would also like to continue to support this scholarship, but perhaps when we do our review into our various grants, that's a time when you, the councillors who disagree with this, raise this as maybe there is an inclusion for grants towards, I guess, scholarships, if that's what you want to do. I think that's the time to raise it. Now's not the time to create policy on the fly.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? 3. Okay, councillors, as the vote is tied in accordance with sub-rule 70 of the governance rules, I will exercise my casting vote and I will vote for the motion, making it 4-3 and carried. Thank you, councillors. I now move on to page 37, item 9.2.4. Christmas Decorations Grant 2022, Acting Director Aitken. May we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Strathbogie Shire Council's Christmas Decorations Grant opened on the 1st of July this year and closed on the 1st of August. The objective of the Christmas Decorations Funding Program is to provide towns in the Strathbogie Shire the opportunity to decorate their main street and/or public spaces to celebrate the Christmas season. The total budget allocation for the 2022 Christmas Decorations Grant Program is $30,000. Grants are available for up to $5,000 per township. Multiple submissions may be considered if within the $5,000 township allocation, and the submissions are complementary. However, groups in the same town are encouraged to work with one another. 6 submissions were received for a total amount of $26,300. 4 submissions from the towns of Avenel, Euroa, Longwood and the Gambi are all recommended for approval for an amount totalling $16,300. The recommendation is on page 37 for Council's consideration.
Thank you, Acting Director Aitken. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the officer? Councillor Haysberg.
With this recommendation, what do you propose to do with the additional funds that council put aside for Christmas decorations?
So officers are proposing at this stage they not be expended, the difficulty being that under this funding program and the policy behind it, the decoration should be able to be erected by the 1st of December. So unfortunately, unlike the Community Action Grant program where we can leave it open, there are some timelines around this one. So thank you.
Thank you, Acting Director Aitken. Are there any further questions or clarification? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Rayburn.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to recommend the recommendation that's printed on page 37, but also amend that recommendation to add 2 more items to that recommendation. And the 2 items I'd like to add to it are to authorise council officers to work with the unsuccessful applicants from Town up to 5,000 and Euroa $3,700 to support these communities to refine their application in line with the funding guidelines and resubmit their application to council consideration. And number 3, authorise council officers to include the Christmas decoration grant program as part of the broader review of the community action group funding and community grant funding.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Is there a seconder for the amended? Councillor Murray?
Can I just clarify within that amendment? So you said the existing applicants?
Yes.
Yeah, who'd already applied, who were not successful.
The 2 applicants which were not successful, yes.
Okay, thanks.
You
So
happy?
not opening it up for the whole community.
Okay, so Councillor Murray's seconded that amended recommendation from Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. It's just that I believe this is one of these ones that I originally voted against it, but here council have made a decision to go forward. I believe we should look after the communities, ensure that the communities have the best opportunity to be able to do this. I believe the issue is with their risk management, and a lot of volunteering groups don't quite understand what risk management is and how to go about it. And our officers, I believe, are very willing to work with them to try to get this risk management up as soon as possible so they can get this going.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think this is a sensible amendment to the recommendation that's listed in our agenda. I think it both rewards the applicants that we have and works with the applicants that weren't quite successful and gives them a chance to readdress some of their applications. As I indicated earlier, I believe there are lots of barriers to these sort of applications, and many of our volunteers find it difficult. And I think this allows our officers to work with some of those applicants, and also looks at the broader issue of funding and community grants.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'll just say I think clearly the lack of applications for this grant program show that it didn't really hit the mark. The timing meant community had very little time to prepare applications and source materials for Christmas decorations. From the outset, I really didn't agree with this grant, but I guess, like Councillor Rayburn said, council approved it, but I just think there's better and more inclusive ways to spend the money. However, I am comfortable with the recommendation and the processes that have been followed to award this grant money. And I'm also, I applaud Councillor Rayburn for including this grant program in the review, in the grant process review. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Councillors, if there's no further one, you didn't need to speak to, no, okay, cool, great. Councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to page 43 of the agenda, item 9.2.5, Municipal Building Control Intervention Policy. Acting Director Aiken, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The Municipal Building Control Intervention Policy sets out how and when Council and its municipal building surveyor will respond to building control matters where a private building surveyor has been appointed and is responsible to carry out functions under the Act, and where matters will be referred to the Victorian Building Authority and/or Building Practitioners Board for their administration and enforcement of the Building Act 1993. Council adopted its Municipal Building Control Intervention Policy in February 21. The policy is required to be reviewed on an annual basis. This report provides a summary of the required annual review of this policy. A review of the policy has identified no required changes are to be made to the policy. The recommendation is on page 43 for Council's consideration.
Thank you, Acting Director Aiken. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer regarding this item? Councillor Rayburn.
Acting Director Aiken, can you explain to us and the community what this actually means? Because a lot of people get lost in the idea of building surveyors and building intervention. So it'd be great to get that to the community.
So the best, thank you, Councillor Rayburn. The best starting point is that council doesn't have its own building surveyor. So all building permits are generally approved by private building surveyors. What this policy does is it puts a framework around how council's building surveyor or consultant building surveyor can undertake enforcement against breaches of the building code and building act. So it provides guidance from the members of the community in terms of how they will go about investigating any matters that may be in breach of any of the relevant building legislation.
Thank you, Acting Director Aiken. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Rayburn.
I move that the recommendation printed on page 43 be adopted by council.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Andrews, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Rayburn?
Just like to commend the Acting Director Aiken in his comments, because I can't put it in any better words.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Andrews, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour? Against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. I now move to page 46 of our agenda. Item 9.3.1, contract variation CN 1920-44 Mullers Road Construction Stage 2. Director Adamek, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. Contract variation CN 1920-44 Mullers Road Reconstruction Stage 2. At the February 2021 council meeting, council approved to award the contract number 1920-44 for Mullers Road Reconstruction Stage 2 to Bitumill Civil Proprietary Limited. Accordingly, the contract was awarded and contract agreements fully executed on the 26th of the 7th, 2021. However, the construction work has yet to commence due to delays arising from Cultural Heritage Management Plan and the planning permits to remove the impacted trees. Although CHMP was approved and obtained since July 2022, the permit application presented to the 14th of December council meeting to grant the removal of the impacted trees was deferred. Consequently, the council undertook a redesign of the work within the constraints and relating to the trees while striving to meet the objectives of the road upgrade works. Therefore, delayed more than 13 months due to these issues, coupled with design changes which include new drainage components, additional fill material and specification for higher grade safety guardrails, have accumulated result in significant cost increases. There's a recommendation on page 46 for your consideration.
Thank you, Director Adamek. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer? Councillor Haysberg?
Can I just ask, what was the initial budgeted amount for this road?
Original value, council 505. It's on page.
Oh, no, sorry, but what did council budget for the upgrade of the road? It was a while ago.
Yes, CEO.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. We'll need to take that one on notice and come back to you, Councillor Haysberg.
Through you, Mayor, on page 49 under financial viability, there's a line there saying the council approved budget for this work is 571,000. Yep, so thank you.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Can I move the recommendation as it's listed on page 46 of our agenda, please?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder to the motion, please? Councillor Andrews? Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murray?
Well, only to say that I believe whilst this overrun is reasonably large, it is understandable given the situation at Mullers Road and the situation with COVID and the last couple of years and all the sort of increases that we've seen attached to that, and some of the requirements that this very council has made on that piece of work. So I think it's understandable that it's that there's been a cost overrun here.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Andrews, would you like to speak to it? No? Would any other councillor like to speak to it? Councillor Haysbert?
Yeah, the scope of the works did change with council's requirements to retain some of the significant trees along the road. So I guess, yeah, thanks to the project managers for taking into those considerations and working with the community on that one and getting to this point.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Any further? Councillor Dickinson, yes?
I understand that works can increase and for various reasons. It does disturb me that this is quite a substantial increase, and I also understand that the contract has changed, but when you've got less than or more than 20 trees that are no longer having to be taken out, that should, I would have thought, help reduce the contract price to some extent. I'm guessing, look, that's all been taken into account, and so I will, I'll vote in favour of it, but it does disturb me that such a substantial increase.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillors, if there's no further comments, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to page 51 of our agenda, item 9.3.2, contract variation CN 21-2213, design and construction, Gambi Water Splash Park. Excuse me. Director Adamak, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Binks. At the October 2021 council meeting, council approved to award contract number 2122-13, design and construction of the Gambi Water Splash Park to Exco Construct Proprietary Limited. After emerging as the preferred tenderer, following a competitive tender process, the lump sum contract was awarded for a sum of $849,410. Accordingly, contract was awarded and contract agreement fully executed on the 1st of the 3rd, 2022. Construction has progressed over 75% with an expected completion date of 30th of November 2022. However, work scope has been expanded post-contract award to ensure that the facility is fit for purpose and completion, thereby resulting in cost variation to contract. Should this variation be approved, the new contract value would be 956,976.24. The recommendation is on page 51 for your consideration.
Thank you, Director Adamak. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer regarding this item? No? Oh, sorry. Councillor Andrews, yes?
No, sorry, Mayor, I snuck up on you then. Director Adamak, when it was tendered, it obviously was thought to be fit for process, the infrastructure there. I just query why it's not fit for purpose at completion now.
I'll have to take that on notice, but in saying that, the cost is escalation in just general cost as well.
Thank you, CEO Salomon, did you want to add something?
Just further to, thank you through you, Mayor, just further to the comments, the reason for the additional works is outlined in the report, and it was one of the cost escalations was a piece of equipment that was changed due to community feedback, and primarily that feedback was from our children, our kindergarten children, who actually chose different pieces of equipment, and one of them cost more. The other one was just improvements to the plant room to ensure that we can have the water circulation with less breakdowns. And the third one was outside the original scope of works, but we thought that it was a very important safety feature, was to import into additional lighting into the car park. So so they were changes post the tender awarding.
Thank you, CEO Salomon. Councillors, if there's no further questions, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Haysbrook.
I would like to move the recommendation on page 51 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbrook. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Dickinson. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor?
This project's been a long time coming, and I think that we've actually done quite well to keep it under the $1 million that was initially budgeted for this project. Given that money was allocated, I guess, a couple of years ago now, and costs have escalated dramatically. Staff are hard to get. Staff cost more. So, I mean, I really want to just push on and see this open for summer, because I know the community is dying to use it.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbrook. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This is going to be a real bonus for our Shire. I still get disturbed by an increase of over $100,000. And we have to take that in good faith and carry on. And the fact that it is still under budget that's a bonus. The whole thing will be an absolute bonus. So, I'm in favour of it, and let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Against? And declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to page 56 of the agenda. Item 9.3.3, contracts and purchases awarded under delegation as approved in Council's 2021 to 2022 Capital Works budget. Director Bray, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, this is the monthly report where we provide a bit of transparency around the contracts that have been issued and decided upon under delegation. So in accordance with the budget that has been allocated by Council for the particular project. So we have some small projects around some of the swimming pool upgrades that I think we've talked about in recent months. But I suppose the most major one, going back to planning being a key issue for our community through the community satisfaction response, is the award of a contract by the CEO for the rural residential and rural land use strategy, which is a major piece of strategic work that looks at some of the changes that have been going on in our rural areas and farming areas. And that's a key piece of strategic work that will be undertaken over the next few months. We also have some seating as part of our streetscape works that are ongoing, some asphalt works, and some other small pool and footpath repairs as well. So there's a range of costs and a range of contracts that have been awarded under delegation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions for the officer regarding this item? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Haysbrook.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion on page 56 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbrook. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Rayburn. Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Haysbrook?
I think Director Bray did a good job summing it up. There's some really exciting projects here, and thanks to officers for providing this report, because I think it's great for the community to see the contracts that we've awarded and what's happening in the Shire. The rural land use strategy, that's a really big piece of work, and look forward to engaging with the community on that one. the street work that's happening by local artists in the community. That's great that officers have used the expertise of locals. And I note that the platypus steps and the irrigation system in Avenel, they were both requests that came through Pitch My Project. So hopefully the community's excited for those because they were direct responses from the community. And also hopefully we get a pat on the back for fixing up some footpaths.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Councillor Rayburn, did you wish to speak to it? No. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? No? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We're now on to page 62 of our agenda, item 9.4.1, Instruments of Appointment and Authorisations Update, S11A, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisations, Planning and Environment Act 1987, S11B, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation, Environment Protection Act 2007, Acting Director Aitken, may we have 2017. Acting Director Aitken, may we have a summary of this report, please? Thank you, Councillor Rayburn, for correcting me.
Thank you, Mayor. So with an appointment of authorisation, it's a little bit different to a delegation. It's putting a person or giving a person responsibility under legislation, mostly about offences under various acts, such as the Planning and Environment Act or the Environment Protection Act, whereas a delegation is delegated to a position. So it's really just updating it. There's been some new staff appointed and some new positions created as part of some restructuring. It's just making sure those people have the relevant authorisations to do their job, basically.
Thank you, Acting Director Aitken. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer? No? Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation as printed on page 62 be adopted by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Rayburn?
As I said before, I can't beat the Acting Director Aitken's words. I think he's doing a marvellous job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Murray, would you like to add anything? No. Anyone else? No. Councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. I'm now moving to item 9.4.2 on page 66 of our agenda, Memorandum of Understanding, Governance Structures to Deliver the Rural Council's Transformation Project Grant. Director Bray, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, you may remember that former Director Roth did a lot of work in 2021 with 3 other councils, Murrindindi, Mansfield and Benalla, about putting a submission to the state government for funding under the Rural Transformation Project. We received a letter from Minister Lean that we have received $1 million worth of funding over 2 years, which will be supplemented by contributions of around 1.4 million from the 3 councils to basically work together in collaboration to identify better software systems and software solutions for some core and key functions, including records management, finance, council agenda and management, planning, building and regulatory services, and also customer contact. So it's a fairly complex project, as you can imagine, with 4 councils being involved and 4 or 5 themes for software systems. The important premise of the project is to actually streamline and adopt similar business practices. So we do think the same function in the same way, using the same software system. And by doing that, we save money, we're more efficient, and we should be adopting best practice as well. So it's there's a long way to go. We're at the very start of the process. And so the first month or so has been spent setting up a governance structure, if you like, to make sure that the project is a success, because as I said, it is quite complex and it's the first time that we've probably collaborated with councillors to this extent, other councils to this extent. So the MOU is attached to the council report, but it talks about a series of working groups, a series of project control group, which is made up of the directors of each council as the decision-making body to make sure that the project is in accordance with the timelines and the reporting requirements and the funding agreement from the state government. So there's some fairly tight requirements by the state government. We've got to work in partnership with the state government in relation to aligning it to their digital strategy. So we're just at the start of the project, but we wanted to bring this to your attention just to note the memorandum of understanding and also the receipt of that $1 million grant. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer? Councillor Haysberg.
Thanks, Director. Is this quite internally focused systems? The community, I guess, won't see the direct benefit of them, or will there'll still be a flow-on effect? Or they will actually use these systems as well, or not really?
Through you, Matt, a lot of it is the background systems, but look, there is one element around customer management, which is later on in the project, and so it might mean that we use a different customer request or customer management system in the future that would then be accessed through our website. But the presentation of it through the website might be the same. But so it's really the background system, but the way we do things. And also, if we're streamlining the way we do things and making it similar to other councils, it just helps people that have contact with a lot of the other different councils in the region. So you get the same response and the same process, whether it's Murrindindi or Mansfield, Benalla or here. So particularly around the planning process and those sorts of things, paying rates, those sorts of things. Hopefully it streamlines that and it just makes things a little bit more consistent within the region.
Thanks.
Thank you, Director Bray. Any further questions for the officer? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as printed on page 66 and 67. 66 and 67 be moved and endorsed by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. And a seconder, Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Rayburn?
Yes, this is something which, under the Act of 2020, Local Government Act 2020, we as a council have been directed by the State of Victoria to look at how we can work with other councils to improve our facilities behind the screens and in front of the screen to improve our operations to our community and to save money. That act came in October 2020. We've just had a letter from the Minister in May 2022. So within 18 months, we've acted, which is unbelievable efficiency by the staff of Mansfield, Benalla, Murrindindi and Strathbogie. I commend and recommend that they are unbelievable staff, and I look forward to this to be working for us in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Murray, would you like to?
Yeah, just to add a couple of things there. I think collaboration is the key here for a small shire that has a big responsibility such as ours, and to get together to collaborate with other shires, I think, and in this way is to be commended. These new systems will be terrific. I think they will increase our efficiency, as Director Bray has pointed out, and also that cost effectiveness. And I suppose that will be seen, hopefully, by our ratepayers, who will be able to predict what our responses might be across a number of shires. So I recommend it to councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Yes, Councillor Dickinson.
Just a comment, Mayor. Might be a good case for amalgamation.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Any further comments from councillors? No? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Page 73 of our agenda, item 9.4.3, adoption of the 2021 to 2022 annual financial report. Director Bray, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. For the last few months, since the start of July, the finance team have been furiously working away on preparing the financial statements, which is a series of statements that we need to prepare and submit to the Auditor General's Office for auditing. And also, once they're audited and reviewed by the Audit and Risk Committee in some detail, they need to be adopted and approved and included in our annual report. So there's quite a few different components of the financial statements, and so I won't go through them in detail. But I think, suffice to say, we've had the Auditor General's appointed auditors, which were Crowe Australasia. They were in the council for over a week and have asked a series of questions, and they've been incredibly thorough in terms of their questions around the statements and clarification. They haven't requested any significant changes to the draft statements, and so they were submitted to the Audit and Risk Committee on Monday, yesterday, and they were passed by that committee, and the recommendation passed to council to as per the recommendation on page 74, to improve in principle the annual financial report. And should we get any minor changes directed to us from the Victorian Auditor General's Office, that we make those but give you an update on those, and that we authorise Councillor Binks and Councillor Murray to endorse the financial report once finalised, and to certify those reports and put them in the annual report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification to the officer? Councillor Haysberg, yes?
I guess I'd just be interested to hear from the councillors who attended the Audit and Risk Committee. Were there any comments from that group on this report that they're worth sharing?
No, there weren't any comments that that need to be shared, I don't think, on the meeting on the Monday. But there may have been more discussion on it on a meeting that I wasn't on Friday, and you'd need to ask the CEO, I think.
Through you, Mayor, I can answer that question. So, as I said, the Audit and Risk Committee went through the statements in quite some detail. We did make an amendment in between the preliminary meeting on Friday and Monday in relation to the commentary around the Violet Town landfill. So through the statements, we're reporting on the same issue in several different ways, looking at different components. And some of the commentary was a little bit, the Audit and Risk Committee found was a little bit confusing. So we've standardised the commentary around the Violet Town landfill. So I think there were 2 points in which that is, so it was clarifying that the cost of the landfill has come down to 2.7 million over the life of the project. And so that we had to do some changes to some of the statements to reflect that. But it was really just around the commentary and making sure that was consistent, and also consistent in the performance statement, which is the next item on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bray. Are there any further questions to the officer? No? Okay.
Ask about, sorry, is that right, Mayor? The cash reserves, if our income did was less than what we budgeted for, but the Audit and Risk Committee meeting deemed them to be satisfactory, or what was the comments around that?
Yes, certainly through the chair, there was some discussion around the cash flow. And so at the moment it was, well, at the 30th of June, it was around $1.4 million in terms of cash. So the explanation was around, look, generally from month to month, we have around $700,000 to $800,000 of expenditure. And certainly the $1.4 million is enough to cover that. But that the cash flow fluctuates depending on when our investments also mature as well. So it's a varying thing. And certainly one of the purposes of reporting we do a monthly finance report to the executive team, and we also do the quarterly reports to council to make sure that we do have that cash flow, and we are in a sound position to make sure that we can cover all of our bills at any given time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Director Bray. If there are no further questions, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Haysbert.
Thanks. I would like to move the recommendation on page 74.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Haysbert?
Thanks. I'd like to commend officers for the huge amount of work that's gone into preparing the financial report, and the officers and particularly the finance team for ensuring that we are in a strong financial position and able to meet ends every month, having that cash flow available. I guess as a councillor, we have to just ensure that the budget that we apply each year is adhered to, and that's happened in this financial report. So I'd like to thank officers for that. It's also comforting to know that Crow and Vargo and the Audit and Risk Committee have approved, I guess, these documents, and that they agree that we are in a good financial position. So thanks to the team for all the work.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against, and declare that carried. Thank you. We might now move to page 79 of our agenda, item 9.4.4, adoption of draft performance statement 2021-2022 and draft governance and management checklist 2021-2022. Director Bray, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. You can tell it's reporting season, can't you? So the next one the next on the batting list is two elements of what we have to do under the local government performance reporting framework, or you might know it as Know Your Council. So this is the comparative site that the state government use, where they have a range of indicators in a performance statement to assess how council is performing on an individual basis, and there's comparisons to the last 3 previous years. And we have to provide some commentary around variation if there's a plus or minus 10% difference in terms of what was reported last year or our performance. The second element of what we have to do under the local government performance reporting framework is what we call a governance and management checklist. And that's basically proving to the government that we have key good governance processes and policies and documents in place, such as a business continuity plan, code of conduct, procurement policy, and there's a whole long list that's in the attachment. So again, these have been through an audit by Crow Australasia, gone through the Vargo process as well. And so there have been some, the good thing is that we were able to answer yes to all of the questions on the governance and management checklist in terms of all the policies and requirements that the state government have identified. And also in terms of our performance statement, which have some indicators. Look, they do show in a couple of areas the impact of COVID in terms of the participation in around maternal child health and some library borrowers as well. But on the whole, the performance has been relatively consistent and nothing unexpected in terms of significant increases or decreases from our performance last year. So, councillors, on page 80, there is a recommendation that council endorse and adopt these statements, and obviously included in the annual report, which will come up to you next month.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification of the officer on this item? Councillor Murray?
Thank you, Director Bray. There's a few comments there in the agenda which talk about the Audit and Risk Committee and whether or not there was a meeting scheduled, that occurred on the Monday. Would you clarify that, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Murray. Yes, we did. We were able to hold an extraordinary meeting on Monday to conduct that business from the previous Friday. So the Audit and Risk Committee have reviewed and endorsed council to approve these statements. So it's gone through that VARGO audit process and the Audit and Risk Committee. So it's gone through the checks and balances required prior to coming to council tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, if there's no further questions, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Rayburn?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as printed on page 80 be recommended. I put that to council for endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Is there seconded to the motion? Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Rayburn?
No, I believe the director has just given us a good rundown on this, and I couldn't get out any extra words to it, actually.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I second Councillor Rayburn's comments here.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Yes, Councillor Hayes-Burke.
I think overall these performance indicators showed that the performance of our council is strong, especially when compared to other shires of our size. I just hope, I guess, in the future we do see more of an uptake of library, pool and maternal health services as life becomes a bit more normal after the pandemic, because it was a significant drop in the access to those services, and they're probably the services needed by the most vulnerable in our community. So I really hope we can increase the uptake of those ones.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. If there's no further comments, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. So we now move to page 86 of the agenda. Item 9.5.1, monthly performance report. Director Bray, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to find some different words to the words that I usually use every month, but the trends keep on being a little bit consistent. So I'm sorry, it's a bit of a rinse and repeat. So look, development approvals and building permit activity remain quite high and across the whole Shire, but particularly in the Gambi, as you can expect, where we have quite a few new estates. Mainly residential development, but there are a couple of commercial developments creeping into the building permit activity and also the planning permit activity as well. In terms of customer requests, I'm sure you'll understand that given the fact that we have continuing rain and continuing storms, and we had another bad session over the weekend, which was quite destructive. We've had over 100 new customer requests relating to roads. I suppose that the response to that is we're working as hard as we can, but the problem is everything is just so wet. It's hard to get graders out because often grading a road at this point in time when it's so wet will make things worse. And it's also a health and safety issue for our grader drivers. And to be frank, given that we keep getting the storm cells coming through and wind, it's really just waiting for things to dry out a little bit so we can patch things up properly. And I know the operations team, Vlad and his team, are working really hard to certainly respond as well. We also had, talking about storm events, we had 38 emergency call-outs in the month, which is quite high. And I think once we get to this time next month, we'll be actually talking about some emergency call-outs from this weekend as well. Mm-hmm. Green waste is up, so spring is springing. So people are certainly obviously getting out into their garden in amongst the puddles. And in terms of the resource recovery centres, I think we highlighted in the last couple of months that some new reporting that is coming to you now. We're online in terms of our transactions through our transfer stations. We had over 2,100 transactions through our 7 centres there, so that's quite a high volume, particularly at Euroa.
Yes,
Thank
great.
you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the officer regarding this issue report? Yes, Councillor Murray.
Director Bray, on page 99, it says the top location by revenue is Gambi with 101.6. So, and then down in the green, it's got 124.08 for Euroa. Is that wrong, or or am I misreading it? It's hard to
So
read.
it's $12,480.80. So there's a little decimal
Oh, there's a
point.
little decimal.
Yes. Which is hard to see and there's no
Thank you, Director
zero.
Bray.
Thank you, Director Bray, for the clarification. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray.
I move that we adopt the recommendation as listed on page 86 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Rayburn. Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would you like to speak to the item, Councillor Murray?
Well, I think there are some really good figures in here in terms of growth and activity for our Shire. Once again, I think things are moving along in that sort of direction. I think there's some challenges as well, as Director Bray alluded to, in terms of our weather and some of the impacts that's had on the climate's had on our Shire and our management of it. And no doubt that will continue to be a problem as time progresses, unless we can get on top of some of those mitigation and adaptation issues there. But yeah, well done to everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Rayburn, have you got anything you'd like to add?
Oh, just to the fact that Honeysuckle Creek's now starting to grow. 837,000, I think it was, and then $1 million. So there's this movement around in the Honeysuckle Creek, which is nice to see. Not just Gambi, Hughes Creek and Sevens Creek are the ones growing. It's also Honeysuckle Creek. So, and it's good for the community to be able to see these sorts of figures on exactly what's going on. The one I was querying is Euroa, how many visits to the place. I'd like to understand why. That's something I'd like to look at in the future, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Any further comment? And sorry, anyone else like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to item 9.6.1 on page 105 of our agenda. 9.6.1, establishing a community panel. Executive Manager Favaloro, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. So action 1.1.2 of our council plan is to complete and implement a review of the advisory committee structure to adopt a best practice approach. So our aim is to find a way of having more meaningful conversations in our community and in a way that improves the experience for everyone. We know best practice engagement can generate trust, it builds contributions and it creates better outcomes for council and our community. So this report outlines a new approach to ensure that best practice engagement into the future, and it recommends the establishment of a community panel, which is often known as a standing panel, and it's a group of people who are brought together to collaborate with council on many issues over a long period of time. So the panel can provide advice on all sorts of different topics, issues, projects, strategies, all those sorts of things. So our panellists would then act as advocates to participation in the community. So not just encouraging others to participate, but building trust, building understanding, and all of those benefits in council's decision making. So I think it's really important to note this community panel is in addition to broad community engagement that we currently do. So it's probably best to describe it as another tool in our toolkit. You know, of course, as I said, we'll always continue to provide opportunities for our entire community to share their thoughts, feedback and advice. So councillors, there is a recommendation for you on page 106, I think, of tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Executive Manager Favaloro. It is 106. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the officer regarding this item? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Executive Manager, this, I note that you talk about it as an additional engagement and in terms of our methods of connecting with the broad community, but it does replace our advisory committee structure that we have currently operating, doesn't it?
It does, Councillor Murray, but I think it's probably important to note that at its height of the advisory committee structure, there was probably about 9 operating. Today there is 4, and of those 3 are either cross-organisation committees or legislative required committees. So the only committee that is currently operating outside of those is the Arts, Culture and Tourism Committee, and of course all of those committee members would be encouraged to join the panel.
Thank you, Executive Manager Favaloro. Are there any further questions of clarification? Councillor Dickinson?
Just wondering if there's a cost involved here, or obviously there is, but what would the cost be?
Thank you,
Approximately.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. It's quite a tricky question to answer. So what the guidelines recommend is that when we call people in for deliberative engagement practice, so that's when the higher level of the engagement spectrum, and when we look at a representative sample of people, that we would pay them $50 a day. So I can't tell you how much it's going to cost because I don't know how often we'll use that practice. All other, I suppose, participation that we're doing outside of that deliberative engagement, which is obviously far more time consuming for participants, would be voluntary. So it's a very challenging question to answer. But when we look at that deliberative engagement practice, we recommend in the guidelines $50 for each participant a day.
Thank you, Executive Manager Favaloro. Certainly, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I ask how this method or this engagement method would work against a small group, the possibility of a small group dominating our engagement process?
So in all broad, I suppose, engagement practice, there is the opportunity for those people to dominate that process. I suppose, we have seen it in the past, but I think that we need to trust that when we're doing best practice engagement, and that when I'm talking about deliberative engagement, there's some things that we do to make sure that that's a safe space. We get an independent, specially trained facilitator. We make sure that when people are dominating, that other people have their say. So it's a very fair, trusted process, and that deliberative engagement, one of the key, I suppose, benefits of doing that is to make sure that someone can't dominate.
Thank you, Executive Manager Favaloro. Councillors, if there's no further questions of clarification for the officer, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Haysbert.
Could I please, thanks, Matt. I'd like to support the motion on page 106 of the agenda to establish the community panel.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Rayburn. Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Haysbert?
Yes, I would. I'd like to speak in strong support of the establishment of this community panel. I don't think it will be a surprise to anyone when I say that council does need to build trust within the community. As a council, we need to be open, honest and transparent. We must ensure our community is meaningfully involved in the decisions that affect them. I see community engagement as one of the most important practices this council must commit to. As a councillor, I spend a huge amount of time reading the engagement reports that we receive on various topics to understand how our community feels and what their advice is. Making decisions on projects, plans and strategies is easier for me when I'm clear on what the community's advice is. I want to see council take the community engagement to the next level, which is best practice. Our community engagement, our community vision, said that it asked council to be bold, and I believe that this is being bold. I think the only thing that we can do as a council is strive for best practice, and this community panel is being brought to us by engagement experts, and I believe that it is best practice. I think that that's what our community deserves. It deserves best practice engagement, and that's why I strongly recommend that council support this. motion.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll reserve my right. Thanks.
Certainly, Councillor Rayburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dickinson?
Yeah, I'm probably not convinced at this point. I don't mind if I'm proven wrong either, but yeah, I don't know that I could support it just on the current information.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Murray?
Yeah, I think I'd like to speak in favour of the motion. The recommendation as it's made there. I do that with some disquiet, though. I do note that there is an advisory committee that I've been a member of for some 12 or 18 months that has been operating throughout a difficult period of time, I believe, quite well, and giving access to some community members who to have a say in our arts and culture and tourism area, that they will no longer necessarily have a means of getting involved in. Although, as the executive manager mentioned, they have an opportunity to get involved in the deliberative panel, I suppose. I'm a little bit concerned about this method, but we need to do something, I think, we need to sort of strive and move forward and take on some of those challenges. We do have some advisory committees, but we have many that aren't really operating very well. And I think we need to actually engage a bit more with the community, and I think this is something that is worth pursuing, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillor like to speak? Or Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak now that you've reserved your right?
Yeah, I'd just like to support what Councillor Murray just stated. To me, our community has been doing this for a long time, having these advisories committees, and COVID has made us become less voluntary. It's made us become, we have to get paid for bloody everything. But in the fact that this is now what is classed in the world of engagement as the best practice, we as a council and I as a councillor have to look at how we can really involve our community in the decision making, which we allow them to be part of. And what always in anything we do, we're always going to upset someone in how we make our decisions. But if we have a trail of where we've gone out, work with community panel, where we've consulted and put an understanding through them, I think we'll get a better feel that we are doing the right thing, and we get a better understanding of what our community really wants. And I think that's the better way, because I was always worried about these advisory panels, advisory groups we have. And one is I've been on the pool committee since I've been on council and never met once. So I'd like to be able to get broader views on issues like the pool and that with different groups across, the young people, the middle-aged, the old-age people like myself who use the pool. So I think it's going to be a better way of communicating with across our community.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Haysbert, would you like to exercise your right?
Thank you. Yeah, in practice, I see this group being a diverse, representing diverse views within the Shire, and that's the ideal, I guess, and getting to best practice engagement. Councillors, I'd ask you, don't you want to give the community an opportunity to have genuine input where they are genuinely having an input into decisions? We got satisfaction survey results recently saying that the community wanted to be more involved in council's decision making. Now is our opportunity to do better. So I think one thing councillors can do is be advocates for better community engagement. It's simple. It's what we should be doing as councillors. And they're not making decisions. We're not creating a pseudo council. They are giving input, expertise and advice. And yeah, I strongly support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I, Councillor Dickinson? No, you cannot. She moved the motion. As the mover of a motion, you have a right of reply. And she is the only one that gets that right of reply, Councillor Dickinson. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. So, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour of the motion, please? And against? And I declare that carried. And can I see, sorry, yes, you can have a division, Councillor Hayes-Burke. So can I see the hands for those in favour? Councillor Rayburn, Councillor Hayes-Burke, Councillor Murray, thank you, Councillor Andrews, Councillor Binks, and against, Councillor Dickinson. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And that motion was carried. Thank you, councillors. So I would now like to request Deputy Mayor Murray to take the chair for the next item, 9.6.2, as I have declared a material conflict of interest due to the request for funding for my company director's course.
All right, we'll just wait till the doors to close. And that's it. Director Bray, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillors, we have a council expenses policy which provides some clarity and some good governance around the expenditure on councillor training, professional development and training. It requires councillors to submit a report to council if they wish to seek expenditure on training that's over and above a $1,500 limit. So every year councillors are provided with a minimum $1,500 for professional development and training, which is one of the requirements under the Local Government Act and in terms of Code of Conduct. Councillor Binks or Mayor Binks has submitted a request and complied with the policy in terms of submitting a request form which is attached to the agenda item around seeking $4,571 to participate in an online Australian Institute of Company Directors course. And part of that, if you note on page 111, we have also got a grant, or Mayor Binks has got a grant from the Regional Councils Victoria, who are subsidising the cost to promote participation by regional councils in this program, and their contribution is around $2,400. So the total course cost is $6,999. So as per the recommendation on page 111, it's requesting that $4,571 contribution from council. Under our council expenses policy, anyone that undertakes this sort of training must provide a written report back to council once they've completed the course, to outline the community benefit and the learnings and the importance of what they've learned in terms of representing the community and being a councillor. I would suppose there's been a lot of discussion over the years around this course in terms of, and it's highly recommended for board members and also councillors to undertake. And I know there has been a series of councillors in the Shires past that have undertaken this course as well. So councillors, you have a recommendation on page 111 of 3 parts. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions of the officer? No, that being the case, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what the motion is? Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as printed on page 111. The recommendation be adopted by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Hayes-Burke. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I believe this is the ultimate for any government, local government and state government staff or local councillor or even politician to do in your understanding of what a director's position is within a organisation. We were privileged and lucky enough at the Regional Council Victoria to have the CEO of the Australian Institute of Companies Director speak at that and stating that a lot of municipal councils have been going to this, but not a lot of rural councils. So that's why they gave the sponsorship to try and entice more councillors and staff of these local, because of the lack of finance available to the rural councils, to try and get more people to participate. So I condemn Councillor Binks on doing this course, and I do note that this money will not be given to Councillor Binks unless she does pass. It has been noted over a number of years that people go and do this course but don't do the final exam because it is bloody hard.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak now or reserve your
I'll
right?
reserve my right, thanks.
Is there any other speaker against the motion? Any other speaker for the motion? Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you wish to say anything?
Yeah, I commend Councillor Binks for doing this course as well. I know it's common practice for councillors to undertake this kind of course to improve their leadership skills and be effective leaders for their community, especially with Councillor Binks being mayor. She needs to be equipped in that role, and I commend her for seeking further education to do so. It does stipulate in the Local Government Act that we need to be doing professional development. And that's what she's seeking here. So I'm happy to support it.
So Rayburn, as there was no speaker against the motion, I take it you won't want a right to reply. All right, councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried. Director Bray, can we ask the Mayor to rejoin the meeting, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Murray, for chairing. So we now move to page 116 of the agenda, item 9.6.3, Community Engagement Policy. Executive Manager Favaloro, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. So Council adopted its community engagement policy in February 2021. This report provides the annual review of this policy, and there haven't been any changes to this policy at this time. So our engagement policy sets the rules on how we engage and who is responsible, make sure that we create communication and engagement plans for projects and initiatives, and it always also ensures that we're always striving for best practice. So councillors, there is a recommendation for you tonight on page 117 of tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Executive Manager Favaloro. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer regarding this item? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Hayes-Burke.
Could I please move the recommendation on page 117 of the agenda?
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Rayburn. Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would you like to speak to the...
I don't think I need to say much because I guess the policy hasn't changed. However, we were fortunate as councillors and staff from the Shire to attend a engagement sort of training day. And now I do understand all the work that goes into preparing engagement sort of timeframes and reports. And I do have a renewed appreciation for all the work that goes into engagement and getting the best outcomes for engagement. And you can see that there's some framework that's been put forward by the IAP too, which is sort of like best practice engagement and what we're striving to achieve as well with having the community panel that was earlier endorsed by council. So yeah, I look forward to putting this into practice again.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Councillor Rayburn, no. Would any other councillor like to speak to this item? No. Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to page 122 of the agenda. Item 9.6.4, draft 2022 Victorian Government Election Advocacy Ask. Executive Manager Favalora, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you again, Mayor Binks. So the next 2 months before the Victorian government election provide a significant opportunity for council to drive a pre-election advocacy campaign. It's obviously an opportunity for councillors to meet with all the candidates and present this information to seek pre-election commitments. So based on our council plan, the 5 projects prioritised in our Victorian government election advocacy ask, it's a tongue twister, is reliable power supply, the 2026 Commonwealth Games Lake Gambi rowing bid, the Greening Eroa project, a nature-based play space, and the Belmatin Hill mountain bike track feasibility study. So councillors, there's a recommendation for you tonight on page 122 of the agenda.
Thank you, Executive Manager Favalora. Councillors, are there any questions of the officer regarding this item on our agenda tonight? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to support the recommendation that's made on page 122 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Andrews. Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murray?
I suppose to say a couple of words about the 5 that we've selected here. The 5 there are the ones that we believe we are best. We've done the background work on. We've developed an argument. We've developed a way of looking at them. We're ready to prosecute those 5. We have an opportunity with the forthcoming elections coming around. It isn't really to say that those 5 necessarily are exclusively the most important, or they're the only things that we're concerned about. We're concerned about lots of other things as well, and I'm sure every councillor here has other things that they're concerned about that they could add to them. But they are the 5 that we have been working on for some time. We have a lot of background on it. We've done the work. The officers have put time and energy into it. Councillors have talked about them, and I think they're the projects that we've got a good chance of making some headway on in the forthcoming months. So I recommend them to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Andrews, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Nothing.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Okay, councillors, we shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to, that's the end of that part of our papers. We now move to item 10, notice of motion. Are there any notices of motion this evening? CEO Solomon, sorry, I should have. That's you.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, no, there are no notices of motion for this evening's meeting.
Thank you. Are there any notices of rescission this evening, CEO Solomon?
Through you once again, Mayor, no, there are no notices of rescission.
And finally, no, not finally, I always do this. Is there any urgent business this evening to consider, CEO Solomon?
And thank you through you, Mayor. Yes, there is a matter of urgent business for this evening's meeting. we have a late report requesting the appointment of a substitute councillor representative for the Audit and Risk Committee to avoid a situation whereby we are unable to achieve a quorum, which is 2 independent community members and 1 councillor representative, where quorum was not able to be achieved at the meeting on the 16th of September 2022. The Audit and Risk Committee is established in accordance with Section 53 of the Local Government Act and plays a key role in assisting council to fulfil its governance and oversight responsibilities in relation to financial reporting, internal control structure, risk management systems, legislative compliance, ethical accountability, and the internal and external audit functions. It's recommended that the substitute councillor be Mayor Binks, who has been in attendance for the past 4 meetings in the capacity of an observer, and she remains as the substitute councillor until the statutory meeting is held in November 2022. Councillors, there is a recommendation in the report attached to this agenda paper. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillors, are there any questions of the CEO regarding this item of urgent business? Councillor Murray?
Can I ask the CEO why Councillor Laura Binks is named as opposed to just the Mayor?
Through you, I'm happy for you to answer that, Dawn.
Yeah, so it was just to, so in the statutory meeting, we actually identify each councillor. And so this is really just an interim recommendation until we have that statutory meeting where it will say, and given the issues we've had and the importance of the Audit and Risk Committee, I think for the statutory meeting, I'll be recommending that we actually do carry on the 3 appointees, but that one of those be the Mayor. So it's really just recognising that Councillor, or the Mayor, has been to several meetings as an observer, and so understands how the committee works and won't take much to get up to speed. And we've got another Audit and Risk Committee policy meeting on the 7th of October, so we've got another meeting coming up fairly quickly. And so the Mayor has been attending those meetings and is up to speed. So it's just because we've got another couple of months just to get through until we appoint committee members at the statutory meeting. But again, I think I'll be recommending to that statutory meeting that the Mayor be one of the appointees, given the importance of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bray. That was my next question.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Rayburn.
Sorry to be a devil's advocate. I'm just naming someone. Only reason I'm going to go this way is because a CEO I'm quite friendly with, their mayor actually passed away, and they didn't have in their governance rules about a deputy mayor or who would step up to be mayor. So, and I'm not putting this on you. I'm not putting this on you, but I'm just worried that if we state a name, that if something does happen, that we're locked in to this, and I'm just wary whether it's just another councillor.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, I understand where you're coming from, and we can certainly have those discussions and make those refinements when we have the statutory meeting in November. This is just an interim arrangement to purely get us through till that statutory meeting, and to ensure that we don't that we always achieve quorum at those meetings. But absolutely take on board your comments.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn.
I wasn't killing you.
That's some interesting comments this evening before the meeting. It's I shivered. Okay, so councillors, if there's no further questions or clarifications of the officers, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray.
I'd like to move the motion as listed under item 12.1 of the agenda, please.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Rayburn. Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murray?
I'd like to say that I think this is a good practice. I was unable to attend, and so was a fellow councillor last week to a meeting, and unfortunately that meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee could not proceed or could not make decisions anyway, and was subsequently held over to the Monday. So I think this, despite the fact that our mayor was present at the meeting, unfortunately she was not named, and then it couldn't proceed because she was not listed as one of our councillors on there. So I think this is a good step, and to have somebody who can sit in or substitute for councillors who are absent, and I recommend it to my fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Rayburn, did you want to speak to the motion? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move to the last item, which is confidential business. CEO Sullivan, is there any confidential business for this evening to consider?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, no, there is no confidential business to consider.
Thank you. Councillors, the next meeting of council is the ordinary council meeting scheduled to be held on Tuesday, the 18th of October 2022, to be held here in person at the Erosion Community Conference Centre at the Binney Street offices, and streamed through our website commencing at 6 p.m. There being no further business, I declare that the meeting closed at 8:20 p.m. and thank you all for your attendance. Gallery, thank you. Safe travels home and good night.